Very good morning, students. Welcome to second semester BSc BBA and BCA classes. Today we will be dealing with few important topics prescribed for your examination or prescribed for your second semester. You have poetry, you have a novel, and you have grammar part. Today I will be dealing with few of the poems prescribed, that is W.A.'s Second Coming, Robert Frost's Mending Wall, and Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and W.H. Auden's The Unknown Citizen, and Nizam Ezekiel's Night of the Scorpion. These are the poems prescribed for you, and I will be dealing with few of the poems I have selected, and I'm going to touch each and every poem. I'm going to analyze critically. I'm going to tell you how you need to prepare for the examination. Before we deeply discuss about these poems, I would like to tell you one thing. English language plays a vital role. Being the students of English language, you should be very accurate in your learning, and you should have the passion towards your language. Then only you will be able to score good marks. So before we discuss few of the poems, and I would like to tell you how to face the examination. When you receive the question papers, don't get panic. Read the questions very carefully and answer the questions which are asked in the question paper. So in order to answer those questions, students of English language should know the content very well. In order to know the content well, the students should be able to learn the primary material, because these poems are not quite lengthy. It is very short. Few of the poems are about 14 or 15 lines or 20 lines. Read the poems twice or thrice, then critically evaluate and try to understand the meaning lies in these poems. The questions are going to be asked very simple. So I'm going to analyze those poems. When we look into literature, literature is divided into many divisions. We have novels, we have dramas, we have poems, we have novellas, we have short stories, all these things. So cultivate the habit of reading, cultivate the habit of enjoying literature. Then only you will be able to master English language. So few of the poems which I'm going to discuss today: Robert Frost's Mending Wall, Stopping by Woods, and other poems. So before we look into the poem, let me give a few introduction about Robert Frost. Robert Frost, perhaps the most popular of American poets. He spent the greater part of his life farming, writing in northern Boston. He always liked writing on rural life, touching upon basic issues like the nature of work, whether it should be vacation or avocation. He generally, in his poems, from the personal to the specific to the universe. His first book of poems, A Boy's Will, that is entitled A Boy's Will, published when he was 39. He received with great acclaim in England. His work was praised throughout England, because he published the first book of his collections when he was 39, entitled A Boy's Will. And few of the other important writings of Robert Frost are West Running Brook, A Witness Tree, and these were the other publications. One poem of Robert Frost, which is a favorite to many of the writers, many of the students, that is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. And remember, Robert Frost is also known as the national poet, and it shows how great his writings are. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening is a favorite of mine as well. I tell you, it is written in simple language. There is rich meaning into it. There is lots of images are used. Even Jawaharlal Nehru used to have this poem under his bed. He used to read loudly this particular poem before he went to sleep. So this, I would like to read out the poem first. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. This particular poem was written in 1922 and published in the year 1923. This poem consists of 16 lines, which is divided into 4 stanzas. Robert Frost is known for using simple words. I tell you students, all these poems prescribed for your studies in the second semester are simple in nature. It's not lengthy and simple in nature. Simple language is used. Just before I explain, let me read out the poem first. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village thou, he will not see me stopping here. To watch his woods fill up with snow. My little hearts must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives harness bells a shake to ask if there is something mistake. Ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Written by Robert Frost. The background of this poem is like this. Usually in Christian belief, that is on the day of Christmas Eve, that is 24th of December, that is the next day we celebrate Christmas, that's the birthday of Jesus Christ. Usually during the month of December, December is known as month of cakes and month of celebration. Usually in England, it is the custom that the head of the family should present gifts to all the other members of the family. Robert Frost, on that particular day, on Christmas Eve, as he was sitting there, as he was thinking to give some presentation to, some gifts to the family members, he doesn't have anything. He goes to his farm, and whatever is grown in the farm, he fills up his cart, horse cart, and he wants to go to the market and sell it, and whatever the money he gets, with that he wanted to purchase some gifts to the family members. So this is the scene that is taking place, and he was just on the way to the market on his horse. That too, remember, it is the darkest evening of the year. That's what the poem tells us. And he just goes to the market in the evening on his horse. And as he was just traveling on his horse, just asks few questions to himself. Whose woods these are, I think I know. And he just asks, yeah, I think I have come to a particular place, and he's telling, yeah, I think whose woods these are, I think I know. Because those woods are, it is a land with pine trees or something. The nature seems to be so beautiful to him. He stops for a moment and he asks the question, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though he will not see me stopping here. And the owner of that farm is staying in the village, and he just asks himself, oh, the owner will not come here, and he will not stop me, and he will not chase me away from this place. He just stops there to enjoy the beauty of nature. To enjoy the beauty of nature. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Usually during the Christmas, there's lots of snowing in England. We can see -degree and all snowing. So he wanted to enjoy the present moment because he doesn't want to think about the next 1 hour or the next day, because he has to fulfill the duty as a family member to gift the family members something on the day of Christmas. So he wants to enjoy. That's why he asks. That's why he stops. And look at the next stanza, what it tells. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmer's near. So the horse on which he rides thinks that why my owner has stopped here where there is no farmers nearby. And he has stopped between the woods and frozen lake. Is there something wrong with my owner? That's the question arises in the minds of the horse. And look at the next line, darkest evening of the year. Usually the sun sets before 6 or 5:30 there. It becomes very dark. And when the darkness sets in, it's very, very difficult for the person to ride on a horse to go to the market. Remember, he has to come home with gifts. So the horse wanted his owner to come back to the reality. He stops there. Robert Frost stopped there in order to enjoy the beauty of nature, in order to forget his painfulness. So what happens? Horse wanted to bring the owner, or Robert Frost, back to the reality. He gives the harness belch a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake, and the other sound except the bells of the horse is the wind sound and other downy flake sound. Those are because the horse wanted he wanted Robert Frost to bring back to the reality, and he stops there, and just when he could hear the sound of the bell of the horse, Robert Frost realizes that he is in a dreamland, and he stopped here and he was thinking something else. The last stanza of the poem is quite interesting, and it gives the philosophy of life. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Because the life doesn't end here. The life doesn't end here, and it just tells the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I cannot remain lazy here, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. The last two lines are repeated. Miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep, in the sense, sleep here indicates death. Before I die, I need to achieve lots of things. Remember, according to the Christian belief, the life which will lead on this earth is temporary. That's what one of the author tells. We are living in a rented house. Whenever the owner asks us to leave, we have to leave the house. That means world. Life here on this earth is not permanent. Life becomes permanent when we die. So before I die, I have lots of things to do, promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So the real meaning of the poem is hidden in the last two lines of the poem. So this is the analysis of the poem. And what are the questions, probable questions may arise on this particular poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening? You may be asked to annotate few of the lines. Few lines will be given. You have to write the annotations on this. This particular poem is written by Robert Frost, and these lines are extracted from the poem entitled Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and you need to explain each and everything for 5 marks. Maybe if the 10 marks questions are asked, describe how Robert Frost critically just as describe the use of nature in the poem prescribed for your study. So this is the one poem I wanted to discuss, and another poem of the same author, that is Mending Wall. Mending Wall is a poem written by Robert Frost. By analyzing the poem, we will get a better understanding of the poem. This is also a philosophical one, and by reading merely a text, we will not be able to understand what the meaning the poem carries. By analyzing each and every line of the poem, we will be able to understand and visualize the intention of the author. Here, the poem is indeed a thought-provoking one. It provokes the thought in one's life. And in other words, it makes us to think about human limitations and societal advantages. So it makes us, this particular poem entitled Mending Wall makes us to think about human limitations. This particular poem tells us how the poem moves around to neighbors. Moves around to neighbors. So this is the analysis of the poem. They meet each other during the spring every year. There are 2 neighbors, including the poet, and there is one neighbor. They have got a farm there, and Robert Frost has grown apple trees, and others have grown something else in his farm. We will come to know at the end of the poem what the cultivation we can find in both the farms. And every year, Robert Frost, along with the neighbor, they come there to mend the wall. Look at the title of the poem, Mending Wall. What is the meaning of mend? Mend means repair. Wall means wall. Wall around the farm. Why wall is needed? That is the question. In order to protect from the thieves, and next is in order to protect from cows entering into the farm. So there should not be any injuries to something should not happen to the crops that are cultivated in the farms, in order to protect from the cows. So wall is built. So wall here also builds that there is a limitation. So this neighbor should not cross my boundary, or I not cross my boundary to reach his land. So every year during the spring, these 2 neighbors, including the Robert Frost and the other person, they meet there to mend the wall. The wall is not a concrete built wall, and the wall is built upon the stones. Usually we find in the village. So the stones are laid up in lines. Maybe some mud is patched up there. Maybe some small stones are kept there so that it should not fall. During the spring season, so it gets damaged, and it becomes a yearly routine for both the neighbor and as well as Robert Frost. So by spreading their farms, moreover, the neighbor believes in the old thinking of good fences make good neighbors. So here the neighbor is having a odd notion, that is old notion, that is good fences make good neighbors. Let us see how the poem progresses further. Further, he also thinks that such walls are what contribute to maintaining a long-lasting relationship with neighbors. That's what he believes. If the wall is not there, if the fence is not there, and maybe there will be a quarrel, maybe you have occupied my land, acquired my land, or those questions will arise, and if there is a wall or a fence, so those fightings or quarrels will not happen. That's what he believes. A good fence or good wall contribute to maintaining a long-lasting relationship with the neighbors. However, the poet, being the other neighbor, doesn't understand and the traditional folly of such thing. Robert Frost doesn't believe in neighbors thinking, where good fences make good neighbors, good fences contribute in maintaining good relationship with the neighbors. He doesn't believe. Although the neighbor is not persuaded, the poet still doesn't understand the necessity of wall. In the end, neither of them are weighed from their thinking. So both of the poet as well as the neighbor, they stick to one particular thinking. That is, Robert Frost doesn't want wall, whereas the neighbor wants wall. Let us see how the poem progresses further. It is about two neighbors that have a wall between them. Moreover, it is mainly about the yearly activity. As I have already mentioned, it is yearly activity of mending the wall every spring. Both the neighbors are conflicting views. They have conflicting views. While the speaker feels there is no need for the wall, and his neighbor believes in the opposite. They both live on a hill, and together they are walking along the wall and fixing the gaps along the way. So they have to fix the gaps, because during the spring season the walls get tumbled or something, maybe stones fall off, and that becomes an yearly activity for the neighbor and as well as the poet. Furthermore, they are both on the opposite sides of the wall and in their respective boundaries. So the neighbor stands there and Robert Frost stands opposite to their direction, and they need to mend and repair the wall, so that according to the neighbor they would be having a long-lasting relationship. The poet describes that there are rocks on the ground on both their sides which look like loaves of bread. Similarly, the other rounds like the balls. And it is a description about the stones that those are fallen to their each side. The poet tells his neighbor, we need not mend the wall. Why he tells we need not mend the wall? He further tells that in his opinion, in my farm I have apple trees, and in your farm you have pine trees, P-I-N-E, pine trees, where both the crops don't mingle with each other. So you have your own boundary, I have my own boundary, and why we need to build a wall, and why do we need to carry this yearly activity? That's what Robert Frost feels, and he tries to make the neighbor understand about the situation, because to mend a long wall, it takes lots of time, lots of labor and wastage of time as well. That's what Robert Frost feels that. Let us avoid this. So that they don't mix together, so there is no need of the fence or a wall. That's what he feels. He further tells, we don't have any cows to put the fence. Neither you nor I have cows in our house, so that it will spoil the crop. What is the necessity of building wall? Since we don't have the cows, we don't need fence. That is a strong opinion of Robert Frost. But the neighbor says that good fences are necessary to make good neighbors. So we cannot change his thought. And next is, from our ancestors, we are following the same tradition of mending the wall. Why we need to stop this one? Why we need to stop this one? Let us continue this tradition. But the poet doesn't like, there is no necessity of the wall. That's what he keeps on insisting till the end of the poem. The other things in the tradition wall. This is also talks about the philosophical way of life. Remember two sentences, two important quotes. One is, good fences make good neighbors. So we need to have the wall. And few of the in your answer, if you write few of the quotations extracted from the poem, you will be getting good marks. That's what critically evaluate the poem entitled Mending Wall, written by Robert Frost. So when these kind of questions are asked, if you just quote few lines from the poem, you will be getting good marks. So this is about Mending Wall. Before the time just passes by, I will try my level best to just come out with another explanation of the poem. And it is also very, very important poem prescribed for your study. That is W.H. Auden's poem, The Unknown Citizen. It is not quite a big one, and it is also written in simple language. And this particular poem, look at the title of the poem, The Unknown Citizen, written by W.H. Auden. This particular poem was written in 1939, shortly after he moved from England to US. This particular poem was first published on January 6, 1940 in New York. Look at the title, The Unknown Citizen. This poem talks about a citizen of a country, how he lived, how he served his country, how his characters are built upon, and what kind of lifestyle he had, and how he is known to the government. This particular poem begins with an epigraph. The poem begins with an ironic epigraph. It is like electronic code. Presently we have Aadhaar card like that. We have a code, scanning code like that. A code is given to the unknown citizen by the government, and it goes like this: TOJS bar 07 bar M378. That is the ironic electronic code that is given to the unknown citizen. This code is given to the citizen, like the Indians are given Aadhaar card, like America it is given green card, like that. The unknown citizen is given a code for identification. Code for identification. Look at the next line there. This marble monument is erected by the state. By the state. So this is the epigraph of that unknown citizen, and let us look into the analysis of the poem and how it is going to be criticized, and how an unknown citizen is narrated to us. The Bureau of Statistics and the other reports show, because the government has collected the data from different sources in order to describe, or in order to give the real picture about this unknown citizen. The Bureau of Statistics and the other reports show that he completes his duty as a good citizen of the country. He completes his duty as a good citizen of a country. According to the report about the unknown citizen, look at the title, unknown, because no, even the government doesn't know the name of that person. The unknown citizen, a report about the unknown citizen. He worked in a factory, Paul's Motor Corporation, and he paid his union dues. That means he has a union and he works in the factory and he has paid the taxes and he has paid the union dues. That means he just lives as a good citizen expected by the government or the state. What is the duty of a citizen here? We need to cast the vote. We need to pay the taxes every year, maybe goods tax, service tax, maybe income tax, property tax, and that is how a government expects from a good citizen. So the same way here, the unknown citizen, according to the reports collected from the different authorities or the different departments, it clearly mentioned, the first bureau, the Bureau of Statistics, clearly tells us, and he has fulfilled the duty of a citizen, and he worked in the Falls Motor Corporation, and he has paid the union dues. So he fulfills his duty as a citizen. And next, the report says he had no odd views, and there is no official complaints on him found in any of the police station. There is no official complaint on him. The Statistical Bureau tells all the mentioned points, whichever I have explained to you about this unknown citizen. After the Statistical Bureau point of view, and another important department comes out with the description or the findings about this unknown citizen. Now the social investigators found him to be normal. No bad behavior. He drinks only the juice. He reads newspaper every day. He was a popular figure in the place where he lived. He had the normal reactions to the advertisements that he reads on the newspaper. That means he seems to be a normal person according to the social investigators. So he is fully insured. That means he has got the health insurance card, and he has got all the facilities given in the factory. He has a health card, and he has a report as well about his health. The report card, his health report shows he was in the hospital only once and left cured. That means he was hospitalized only once. He seems he has got the installments and the insurance from the factory where he works. He lives happily in the society without any complaints against him, either oral complaint or written complaint. And these are the statistics or the reports collected by the state about this unknown citizen. Before they come to any conclusion, the state or the government wants on the record about this unknown citizen. Next, the producers of research and high grade and tells us that he is their investigators also showed that means next producers research and high grade and living investigators also showed that he was normal and he had everything necessary to be a modern man. Look at the description, modern man, and he had the radio, he had the television, and he had all the means of entertainment at home. And according to another report, according to the public opinion researchers, he held the proper opinions from the time to time, according to the public view, and he had a good reputation in the society. He had a good reputation in the society. And it is also mentioned that he also served in the war. He also served in the war. And next report tells us that he was married and had the opportunity of maybe appropriate number of 5 children. He is married and he had appropriate number of 5 children according to the eugeologist. That is another report. He fulfilled his duty as a father as well, and he admitted them in the good school, and he paid them the school fees, and he got them good education, and he never had any quarrel with the school where he admitted his children. He never interfered with the school matters. He even paid the school fees. It is absurd to ask. It is very, very difficult, absurd to ask if he was free or happy. For if anything had been wrong, and it would have come to the notice of the government. The only thing the government doesn't know about the guy, whether he is free and happy. And he couldn't have been unhappy, otherwise the government would have heard. If the unknown citizen is unhappy, the government would have come to know, maybe from any of the statistical report. He never asks any questions against the government, or he never raises any questions against the government. And he seems to be a good citizen of that particular country, and this man is known to be the unknown citizen. And this is the analysis of the poem entitled The Unknown Citizen. And please go through all these 3 poems which I have described to you, and read between the lines, and read twice or thrice the poem, the primary source of the poem, and then you will be able to understand it better. Before I conclude this my my lecture, and I would like to discuss one more poem, that is one more poem prescribed for your second semester, Nizam Ezekiel's poem, The Night of the Scorpion. And it is also an interesting one which talks about the traditional belief or the superstitious belief of the Indians or the people. Nizam Ezekiel, this particular poem is quite interesting, and it is also written in simple language. It is written in simple language. Look at the title, The Night of the Scorpion. Nizam Ezekiel. It is based upon a real incident. This happened in a night which the poet never forgets in his life. Forgets in his life. There is no rhyme scheme, and it is an 8-stanza poem. This poem begins like this. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with him poison flashy of diabolic tale in the dark room, he risked the rain again. He risked the rain again to move away. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed in the name of God, and 100 times to paralyze the evil one. The poem goes like this. And at the end of the poem, we come to know the real meaning and what kind of love the poet, what kind of love the mother had towards the children. So I remember that particular night. So this incident happened in a night. Usually in the villages we find, maybe if it is too rainy, the scorpions come into the house to take the shelter. This particular incident happened during the night, and it came there during the night. It is 10 hours of steady rain. 10 hours of steady rain, heavy rain there, and it came into the house, and the mother of the poet was stung by the scorpion. After parting the poison or injecting the poison into the body of the mother of the poet, and it crawled beneath the sack of rice. And after parting the poison, and again the scorpion doesn't want to stay in that particular place, and again the scorpion risked his life to escape from that particular place and go into the rain again. And peasants, that means lots of people, that is the superstitious belief of the people, lots of people came there and they chanted the names of the god to paralyze the evil one. And in those days, even today in most of the villages we find, even a person is bitten by a snake or something, they are not going to be taken to the hospital. And if a person is stung by the scorpion, they are not going to be taken to the hospital. They just believe and pray to God. And sometimes they apply some juice of the leaves, maybe a small stone, they tie it on the particular spot where the snake bite is, snake bit that particular person, or the stung by the scorpion. The particular spot, they apply maybe the juice of the leaves and maybe a stone or something, they tie it. They just cut it with a blade and they tie it. They believe that this particular leaf or the particular stone will suck the poison from the body. And here they sit, usually remember, a person who is stung by the scorpion or maybe stung by the snake or something, bitten by the snake, they are not allowed to sleep. They are not given water, they are not allowed to sleep. In the movies we might have seen, maybe throughout the night, people sit together, they sing, they set fire, maybe in order to warm their body, keep on chanting, so that the person who was bitten by the snake or stung by the scorpion stays awake throughout the night. And they believe that within 48 hours, the poison will come out of the body. So that's what lots of people come there to chant the names of the god to paralyze the evil one. As the poem progresses, and at the last two lines, thank God it spared my children. That's what mother's love is, always unconditional one. We cannot compare anyone with mother. Mother tells that, thank God I was stung by the scorpion and my children were not stung. It shows tremendous love and the superstitious belief. And these may be the questions: how does Nizam Ezekiel try to bring out the superstitious beliefs of the people in the poem entitled The Night of the Scorpion? So this is what I wanted to tell you, my children, my students. Please go through all the descriptions which I have given and prepare well for the examination. Then you will be able to understand it better, and it is 100 marks paper or 80 marks paper, whatever it is. 20 marks for your grammar, 20 marks for your annotations part, and another is question answers from the poetry and the novel, or the novel which is going to be dealt by another assistant professor in the next class. So students, if you have any queries, you can ask us there. You can comment on the box. So thank you students, and study well and prepare well.